Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Artful Leadership, the interview series. Today we are doing our fourth episode, and I'm going to be talking to Dairrick Hodges of the SOULcial Workers, an organization here in San Diego that is working to support youth who are experiencing issues around mental health and suicide prevention. And as you can hear in the name, social workers is really about bringing a lot of soul to the work that is usually done by social workers and other support systems for youth. And he's bringing a really authentic and unique and creative approach to that work and creating really safe spaces for youth to normalize the experiences that they're having. So I think it's a really valuable thing he's creating and a community he's building. And I'm excited for you to get to see him as one of the most colorful faces of creative youth development. Hey there!
How are you?
Good.
Good for you.
Welcome back to Artful Leadership.
Hey, long
Hey,
time no see.
no. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So, I know you from some amazing work that you were doing with another organization, kind of empowering youth to destigmatize mental health issues through the arts. And I'm hearing that since then, you've really taken off with a new project. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, as you stated in my previous work, I was like sharing like helpful tools on how to destigmatize mental health through creativity. And now my work is sort of focusing in on experiencing with depression and suicide prevention. So I'm kind of similar work, but offering like creativity as a coping skill in spaces, helping to educate young people on like their experiences with depression, and normalizing the conversation around suicidal ideation, and finding different ways that they can help and cope and tell their stories, and build stronger relationships around um, sort of this thing that we haven't really made space to speak honestly about yet. Um, so it's sort of the work we're doing.
Right. And so, who are the youth that you are working with?
So right now I'm working with my program. It's called Camp Art, which is an acronym for Attitudes, Awareness, and Relationships Training. And we serve a population of transition age youth. So right now our range is about 14 to 22, I think, is our oldest young person that we're working with. And we just serve whoever is seeking an opportunity to join the conversation, or learn a little bit about how to like name and claim this thing for themselves, and is interested in activating that conversation in community. um, I'm we're really trying to build a platform for young people to kind of reclaim their agency, and tell the stories that they need to tell, and from their own narrative share with like different like school settings and systems and their family even sometimes about what it is that they need to feel safer in their relationships, to be honest about what they're experiencing, and to access the support that's available but very disconnected from where they are in their lives, and without having those like healthy relationships, haven't been offered a clear path on how to like navigate those resources or get to what it is that they need, um, and also to sort of teach some of those long-standing like resources and disconnected spaces, um, where their areas of growth are, to help facilitate that relationship between the people that need to access their services, and how sometimes we can adapt them to make them more like beneficial, or to fit the needs that are really there, and not just what we think that they need to get them through what we want them. Yeah.
Right. And so your new initiative is called the SOULcial Workers. Why don't
Yes.
you come up with that name? I love that implanting of the word soul in there.
Yeah, it's a heart space. It really speaks to sort of our value of authenticity. It really speaks to like the vulnerability that we sort of lead with. And I think that it's about a lot of like our work is about like identity and culture and being able to like stand in your truth and create, space in a world that's authentic and safe for you. And so that's like the soul space in our work. And I think it's the additional layer beyond just like the training that we have, the beyond the education or the artistry that we bring into the room as professionals, but it's really the connection to who we are as people and the why that we do the work that really drives the process that we engage the young people and the communities that we serve. And so that's why we do it with soul.
Yeah, I love that. And so you have a strong background in theater and music and all kinds of arts, and that's what you're bringing to this space, right? So this isn't just your traditional let's sit around and talk about mental health.
No, definitely not. Our conversations are almost completely artistic. A lot of what we do in the space is through performance and through poetry and storytelling and theater, and improv games, and a lot of the way that we engage youth in the material is through storytelling. And so that really works in our space. I get to bring my passion as an artist and sort of my professional experience into the room as a performer, and create safety on sort of a universal creative ground, because sometimes art speaks like where words are hard to find, and so we try to engage these like tougher conversations through creative ways or forms of like safe self-expression. um, and yeah, and in return, the youth offer us their creativity and their story, and we get to help them um, shape performances or build their artistic skill as they're sort of learning how to find their voice through whatever medium speaks to them. So I try to like fill the room with as much of a range of artistry as possible. We have makers and visual artists, and we work with photographers and choreographers and writers and singers. So it's a pretty exciting place to be in.
Yeah. And what a healing space, that's not just addressing the issue, but is like kind of mobilizing all the things that create healing, right?
Right.
We get to identify our feelings, we get to share them, we get to create something new with other people, write a new story for ourselves, connect to a community, and then share that with a community that can then reflect back, how they experience that. So it's just like a whole healing loop going on.
Yeah, I like healing loop. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's it's really where like my heart space in the work is. Um, I'm really passionate about like self efficacy and having like offering youth an opportunity to have to access their own agency. Like I come from a lot of professional spaces outside of my artistry, in like the nonprofit sector and in like clinical and traditional like treatment spaces that don't always work, and sometimes we haven't really created a mechanism for youth to find their own language in that, and for them to be able to like understand what's really going on in those spaces, or to connect the dots between things that tools that they were never maybe given in their own experiences. So this is our approach to this is by offering them creative ways to look at healing, and how do you activate the things that already work for you, or maybe different or alternative, to tradition, but have the same impact of healing and safety and personal growth and development, and then offer maybe a safer path to some of those more, I guess, those more traditional resources, should you identify that as a need for yourself.
Right, right. Well, and I've been doing a lot of reading on trauma and healing trauma through the body, and there's so much research that's coming out now about the benefits of the arts and theater and dance and movement and really bringing people back into a well-being. We can be trauma informed, but and that's one thing. That's like kind of knowing what has happened, but being healing centered is really about creating an opportunity for a person to be new, to heal, to find a new story. So I think that the arts are such a powerful way to do that.
Absolutely, and I think we intrinsically know that as a society. Like arts have always been directly linked to culture and to science, and I think we understand that to a very foundational degree that art is the tool for who we are, and it's our conversation, it's our proof of existence, it's our connection to this earth, and and I think where that's valued in our world and in our systems of education, it all depends on how you tell the story. Sometimes we think it's just a hobby or we don't value the arts. But I feel like whenever the world is really hurting, it's when we turn to the artist. It's when we go looking for the creativity and the places to express because we know that art is cure. And I think right now more than ever, the world is hurting, and
Yeah.
so I'm excited to see a lot of conversations happening that they're starting to reintegrate the ideas of centering arts and creativity in all of these spaces where it's been really void. And we've seen just over time what the impact of that has been on who we are and the safety of youth. Like even with the issue of suicide, it's the number two reason why youth are dying right now. And so when we look at numbers like that, it's hard to ignore the fact that something that we're doing right now is not working. And and now more than ever, there's sort of a call to be creative about how we're addressing issues or how we're going about these things. And I'm excited to see arts and artistry be invited back um, to sort of lead that conversation and lead the direction because I think change always begins and is always pushed forward through arts and artists in our world. And history has supported that over and over again. And I just think we're there again. I'm excited to be in the mix of that right now.
Yeah. 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 So, something we didn't talk about before was what are maybe some examples of real transformation that you have seen in the youth that are involved in your work?
Oh man, sorry. I don't want to get emotional, but um, I think without like telling anyone's like personal story, um, I get to actively watch young people discover themselves on a regular basis. Um, and I've had a number of youth that have come through my door and identifying, being lost or feeling disconnected in their life. Um, and because of that, whatever's going on for them in different degrees isn't always like safe or healthy. But I think my favorite thing um, that I think comes out of the space that we hold is them learning to hold compassion for like their experiences and their choices, and also gain an understanding that some of the things that have happened to them in their lives aren't about them and don't define who they are in this world, and also don't limit their potential to grow beyond those experiences. And what that door opens up in a young person um, is exciting because it's endless and it pops up in various different ways. And if you have kids that are like um, that have never even talked in class before, but are now like leading activities at their schools and like signing up for, you know, like running for like school president or, activating creative spaces in their classroom or even having that as a language. Like I had a student that I just helped with their midterm, um, and their final paper, their essay they wrote a monologue, and I thought that was incredible. That was their chosen form of expression, but even to be able to say like in this space, this is how I'm going to choose to like show up.
And then it's just like watching change happen and them reinvite the idea of what's possible for them. Expanding that is really great to see, and I think that happens. That's just a natural byproduct of being offered, you know, creativity and the safety to explore and develop whatever is really already just in there. It's just about how do we help them find that and love that thing and give themselves permission to show up in their world, in a way that's authentic to them. Um, and I think that's happening.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds super exciting. Um, so you have a real personal connection to this work, and I would love for you to say a little bit about that. I know your story is really powerful because you are one of those kids, and you know what this means in terms of
Yeah,
transformation and healing. Yeah.
yeah. I was absolutely one of those kids. I am one of those kids, and um, I always share with them, like, sometimes, like, your path or your work in life, like, you choose it and sometimes it chooses you. um and and that's just true for me. I was born into a world um that wasn't easy. I grew up in the foster care system, and I experienced homelessness as a youth, and I've just sort of been bounced around through various modes of, like, disconnection and sort of um being lost my whole life. Um and I also, like, came from a family that battled heavily with depression and mental illness, and we as a family didn't have language for that at all, or it just wasn't even culturally encouraged that we share pain out loud. And because of that, I've lost both my mother and grandmother to suicide, and it is just something that we're still silent about as a family. It's still, a space of shame and hurt, and mental health is a thing that is showing up in other family members. So it's still something that is active in my life, and a very personal space that I work from, which is why, not only am I passionate just about working with youth in general, but um, I think it's important, as I grow as an artist and as a leader, that I surround myself with other leaders that are growing and learning. And I really see my partnership with the youth that I serve in that way. They teach me things all the time, and the fact that I get to study alongside them and offer them information that I know and exchange back and forward, it helps me increase what I need to know to do the same work in my own family and in my own personal world, and to offer them that same level of, like, vulnerability and transparency in my experience, so that they know, wherever they are in their journey, that there's a next step, and that if they choose it, there's more to the story, and right now we can write that story and we can share it and you can own it, and then you can change it however you choose, you know, and that's what we're doing.
I love so much all the themes you're bringing up about youth empowerment and really allowing youth to create the healing spaces for themselves that they need. And it's not informed necessarily by outside experts, but it really evokes their own wisdom and their own body knowing and whatever it is that they need to do in order to become whatever is there for them, and also this idea of really sharing with youth in authentic and vulnerable ways. And I think so often, when we have this like clinical training, there's all these barriers and power dynamics, and there's this sort of I'm up here and you're down here, and it really can be such a barrier to the kind of relationship that needs to happen in order for healing and growth for young
Right.
people. And I'm thinking about, like, recently one of our monarch students passed away, And the most beautiful healing moment for us was when everybody showed up at the memorial service this weekend. You know, outside of the school, outside of all those roles that we play, we held each other, we cried, we hugged, we laughed, we told stories, we shared about it. And I think those are those places where those connections happen. It's outside of those sort of clinical little boxes and realms. And so I'm really hearing from you that there's a lot of authentic interaction happening with your youth that's just guided by the relationship. And I think that's not just a good idea, but there's a ton of research that shows that that's really what works. So I'm excited to see for you as as outcomes sort of evolve for you, what you're able to really show with that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I really believe that that illness is not rooted in what you're living with, but how you're living with it. And a lot of what we as a society perceive as sickness comes from this idea of isolation or loneliness, or that we are, we are by ourselves or in our experiences. And true and genuine healing only happens when you find connection and community in those spaces, to learn that you're not alone where you are, that you're supported. And even though it's true to a degree that everyone's walking their own path, no person is alone on any path that they choose. And that's and I just think that there are a lot of adults that are existing in our world that haven't learned that yet. That and it's all the more important because of that. You know, we've because of the adults that haven't learned that yet, we've sort of created an environment for the young people that are coming after us that that sets up a little bit of a challenge in them
Yeah.
getting to who they are, and pushing past the sort of rules we set on being individual or being authentic, or sharing or connecting in things that are supposed to be private or too personal or not appropriate for this setting or whatever we do, and it's exciting to watch young people. I just think as a culture in their generation, they're just like not about that. And so
Right.
but it's also cool to watch, to be able to like watch them in these spaces, like push against that, and just try what it looks like to own the fullness of me, and to be accepting of those around me, and to make active choices to connect to other people, and learn people's names, and have genuine conversations that show up for people in real ways, and see if that doesn't move the needle on some of these more structured issues, that these walls that we're up against. And 9 times out of 10 it does. So that's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Really, really important for me now in my work.
Yeah, and it is so incredible how the arts can be such a container of all those really difficult experiences, and then this place where you get to express what's going on, and then you get to share it with the world, and they get to connect with it, and suddenly you're not alone in those experiences. And then the act of making art and sharing and singing and all those things also is healing. So there's just this whole cycle that happens when we're engaging in the arts around these like deeply personal stories. And I love the work that you guys are doing and how you're naming this work of destigmatizing these things and really placing them in the context of this is a human experience. This is something
Absolutely.
so many of us deal with. Let's normalize it. Let's give voice. Let's give tools, and let's move forward together.
Right.
Yeah.
And also just having the opportunity to work in the field. um, so often we prescribe healing for young people, and even adults, really. We as professionals, as helpers, acquire a certain set of tools and trainings, and we walk into the room as experts, and we think that we hold the narrative on what works for people based on what we're able to identify and what we're trained to see in a room, right? And I think that completely robs the agency from the people that are living the experience, right? And we don't we don't teach young people about their mental health. We don't have the same conversations that we have as professionals with people that really need the information, you know. And if young people have an opportunity to learn things like trauma-informed care and learn, you know, things about mental health, and be able to get the language to navigate the world that they live in every day, you know, frankly, some of the prescribed resources that we have, we would find null and void, you know, because if the idea behind resiliency, right? We assume that it's something that is just there and people just need to tap into it, when really it's a muscle that you build, right? And if you don't give people the opportunity to exercise that, to try different things, you know, and find what's therapeutic, find what's healing, find what's safe for them, you know what I mean? The things that we offer on our side of the table are ultimately ineffective, and outside of the space that we hold with them, right, they don't work in their everyday life. And I think that this space is intended to help them discover what works for them, and to also highlight the therapeutic aspect and things that they do every day, you know. So it's like, if you're for writing, if you're journaling, if you're dancing, if you're singing, you know, if you have a close relationship with your hairdresser, you know, these are these are where you find your therapy. And it's okay to know that. And if that's what's working for you, then let's amplify that. Like, let's make that intentional space, and we want to be here to help you do that.
Right. Right. And like all those tools for well-being and healing are right at our fingertips.
Hmm.
They're not like these clinical things out there that are like intangible or someone else has expertise. And I love how much you spoke about that, because that's such an important part of my work is really empowering youth to figure out what's your way.
Right.
When I became an expressive arts therapist, that was one of the things that I loved so much about that approach versus a more clinical approach, where it was kind of like, let me be here with you and let's see where we need to go with this. And the things that youth find helpful are not things that we would necessarily come up with. And
Yeah.
but when they do it and it comes from them, it's like this gorgeous healing thing happens. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's simple little like things that get unlocked, and then that we would never guess. And youth have their own way of doing these things. And I love that you're really working on that edge with them to help them create that space for themselves.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So who else is part of this team that you're working with?
So I have the thing about the social workers, we're like a collective of artists and activists and educators. So I really, so far how it's been working, just been reaching out to um, friends of mine that I perform with in the community, and really artists that I identify that are sort of doing similar work through their creative platforms. And um, beautifully, some of our artists have trusted us with their experience, so we've been able to build a space with artists that also have lived experience in the issue, which has really been impactful. So I have some great poets like Anita Diaz and Zach and New King, and I just my friends around. I've worked with like Beto and Gil Sotu and just like all of these really amazing artists in the community that have really lent their time and their support for not only me, but for the youth that we're working to serve. And it's made for some really beautiful work. I think that we've done community events. So we held a week-long open mic in public space where we just put a microphone in a parking lot, really, which at the Dojo Cafe, and just invited people to the space to tell their story and to speak openly about this thing. And we had a full week of packed space with just young people and community artists and just people that lived in the neighborhood, people that were driving by, hearing these things being spoken out loud and being drawn into the space from their own like heart space and their own experience. And the like the network of social workers is building in that venue, because people are like, hey, I want to do this, I want to talk about this thing, or I wrote this poem, can you like share it with your youth? So we just kind of got this like building movement that's sort of happening organically, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's just such a wonderful way to approach it, as this organic community that's just kind of a movement. I think that's so much more powerful than just an agency or an organization, and you're going
Right.
to gain so much more traction. And there's so much research now that's coming out about how powerful relationships are for youth, and I feel like the more this whole thing is based on relationships,
That is the core of everything that we do. Um, it's my passion space. Out before Camp Art became Camp Art, it existed as a healthy relationships workshop, and it sort of developed to like specify the conversation around suicide prevention. But a lot of our work always points back to that, and like the mechanism that we try to create is building that relationship, not only between us and them, but them and each other, and then them and community, right? And I think that's the most effective part of it, because a lot of what works in our engagement is just the authenticity piece, the permission to be vulnerable with youth. You know, when they cry, we cry. When they share, we share. You know, when they're working through things, we sort of get in the mud with them and walk alongside them in their process. And I think that that's what's most impactful for young people, and also what's sort of greatest barrier in our professionalism oftentimes, because that humanity piece sort of gets trained out of us with like ethics and rules and all of the boundaries that are set in roles. And sometimes, I know definitely in my upbringing, it was all of the people in my life that made the choice to step outside of their role to support me that helped me to move forward, and where it really worked. You know, the people that took the time to see me in the places that I was hiding and meet me there. And I really aim to be that person for the young people that I get an opportunity to share space with.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's also no small thing, the relationship that the adult artists get to have with one another.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm wanting to kind of develop with the work that I'm kind of moving into, is how do we keep our artists alive when we're, day in day out working with youth who have so many challenges, and sometimes we can get kind of lost, like our own work can get lost. And so community of artists that you're constantly in community with. Tell me a little bit about how that is for you as an artist.
Man, and I guess this is a little bit of a roundabout way of answering this, but um, the reason why I know this works is because it worked for me, and it is working for me. You know, when I lost my mom a couple of years ago, it was a really rough space for me to be in, and I unfortunately didn't find safety at my previous organization, or like in my circle of professionals. And I think that I had this misconception that if I ever had a rough spot, I would be held by the team of like therapists and people that were around me that, you know, sort of are in coining this thing about like holding trauma in space and all of that. And that was not the case for me. You know, I was expected to be professional and to leave my personal world at the door and to keep working as if the things that were happening in my life weren't real. And that impacted me in a really negative way. But it was my team of artists, it was the spaces at open mics, and it was the artists that I had performed shows with, or people that have just like seen me in community excuse me, that really came out to support me, that came to my house late nights and sat with me and cried with me and helped me write when I had something to say and gave me permission not to write when I couldn't find words, and it was those people that held me up and helped me to move forward, and then in turn supported me to sort of build my dream when I made the decision to start the SOULcial Workers. And that network is there, and it's sort of like the foundational part of what we do, because we just get together and we create and we connect and we talk, and we all collaboratively sort of activate our individual like projects and ideas and things that we're doing in the community, and it's really sort of working out at this as this exchange, like, hey, I need you to come do this thing, and vice versa, and we all just show up for each other and support each other, and I think that it not only has it sort of made the work that I'm doing possible, but it also sort of collectively enhances everything that we're all doing, because we just get it and we know where everybody's at and what we're all working on, and how we can be of support in each other's spaces, and because of our relationship we're willing to do so.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds really powerful.
Yeah.
Really, really powerful and exciting. So if people want to support what you're doing, donate, be involved, like what are the steps for people to get involved with the SOULcial Workers movement you've got going on?
They can find us on Facebook or Instagram at the SOULcial Workers, SOULcial. And we also have a website, thesoulcialworkers.com. There's an opportunity to donate on the website. We're going through a little bit of a transformation on the page because we're developing, rolling out some new programs and events and stuff. But yeah, you can find us there. You can find me directly on Instagram at dk.music, or just like anywhere in the community, you'll run into me, trust me.
Beautiful sign, like you're colorful and you're easy to spot. It's like there's
human cartoon, or like you'll see me. But yeah, and I just encourage people, if they're interested in supporting, to find me on Facebook is where we're sort of most active in conversation, and on there is like my direct email, where people can reach out to me specifically and talk about however they would like to be of a support to what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And so how are you guys funded right now? Or is that a way that you need some support also?
Absolutely. I've been self-funding this thing for as it's been. We actually got for Camp Art, we got a small grant from the Jacob Center to pilot, and that helped us activate our first season. And then since then, I've sort of been self-funding and getting support from different partners around, like Say San Diego has been really supportive of the work that we're doing, and the Junior League of San Diego has been really supportive of me in that way as well. And then other like organizations have like lent us their space and their time and different resources. We've been working with Arts for a while now. We rehearse out of their space, and sort of like as the work is happening, people are sort of getting attracted to it. So we're hoping to move into a space of getting some grants and stuff. I just got my 501c3, so we're moving into that space and doing some of the like organizational structure stuff. So that's happening, but I'm super excited that this thing is building. And yes, so if people got money or like plugs to resources or anything like that, holla at me. We need all that. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Any last words for young artists or folks in our profession that might be watching this? I don't know.
Yes. I lots of words, but I think I just want to say thank you. To be honest, like I am uniquely like a product of my environment, you know, like, and I was born and raised in this city, and like some of the very programs that I work alongside now are same programs that raised me as a kid. And so it feels amazing to be in a space where I'm carving out my own seat at the table. And I'm just grateful for all of the like experience that I've acquired, the things that they've taught me, because I really draw on those things when I'm in the moments with my youth. And as I am developing as a leader, I'm gaining more appreciation for the different people that have impacted me and shaped me into who I am. Um, so I'm grateful for that. And I guess my word to workers, um, I would like to see us as like organizations, as a sector, like in nonprofits and even in creative spaces and in education, start to honor like the power and impact of that type of authenticity, and encouraging people to build stronger relationships with the people that they serve. Because you miss so much when things become transactional, and sometimes it's the little things that we do just to be human that change young people's lives forever. You know, I even right now in this moment, I'm going through this whole flashback of all the just the little times that I've sat down and had lunch with teachers and the conversations that have happened that have changed the way that I saw myself and the world around me. Um, and I'm hoping to be a vessel to encourage some of these spaces to become more authentic and build more intention to really get to know people and really be able to do the things that we do as professionals from who we are as people, and not just the jobs that we're taught to do. Um, so I don't know if that means anything, but
Yeah, well, those were a lot of wonderful words. I've been doing a lot of reading of like Brene Brown, and I don't know if you are a big fan of hers too, but she talks so much about that vulnerability and authenticity and really bringing our humanity to the work. And so I'm so excited to see where you go with it and stay connected with you.
yes, I'm excited for what you're doing. Like,
Yeah, so great to talk to you this morning,
you
and
too.
well, I love it. This is a great conversation, and we can do another episode another time. And I'm really looking forward to just staying connected with more of you who are doing this great work. And I feel like those of us who, you know, you were saying about adults who don't know how to do this, for those of us that do, we have such a responsibility to youth to open up those spaces for them, because there is such a culture that closes that off. So I think it's important.
Which is why I'm excited about the work you're doing. Because I
Yeah,
feel like that's
yeah,
how I experience the space you hold at Monarch, and I'm excited that you are activating that at a community level. It's really cool. So,
um,
'cause we need it. We need you.
thank you. Well, that's what's so cool. We get to all do this together, and that's really what this little interview series is for me. Is just building relationship with all of you out here that are doing this great work and being a part of that community, because that's where I want to be. That's where like the juice and the transformation and the stuff is happening for the kids, for the artists, for the community, and it's just a whole thing happening that I want to be a part of. So
Yeah.
yay, thank you for being such a shining star. I had so many people that I've been talking to were like, you need to talk to Dairrick. And I was like, okay. You're doing
A
something right.
diabolical plan.
But well, I'll let you go and we'll catch up again soon. I'll keep an eye on what you're doing and see if I can show up to one of your showcases or something.
Awesome. See you around. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Take care.